There we go. So I'm Tristan.
Hey, I'm Mohammed.
You're listening to Difference of Squares.
Yay.
Where
Where should I be looking? I think I should be looking over there.
I guess it's professionally you look in the camera, not at like the image
So
of
where
each other.
is my camera? There? Yeah, but I'm looking at your face and it's making me look to the other direction.
Yeah, if I look at your face, I also don't look directly at the camera.
I wonder if I should just do this.
I guess I could like move it. I don't want. Anyway.
What's up?
Oh, not much, Muhammad. If you remember from last time, though, we were reading about the adventures of a barbarian named Grignr.
Oh, I know. Dude, I feel like I should try one more time with my laptop. I feel like this is not... I can barely hear you.
Just put one earphone in. We'll get a half measure going. Yeah, can you hear me all right? Huh?
I can hear you perfectly fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. So where we last left off, our epic hero.
I was thinking the other day, somebody should like doodle this story.
There actually are, like whenever they published it, someone did make some doodles, which I can show you. They're not particularly like good doodles, but there are doodles.
No, but I was more so thinking like, you know, those cartoons that are like super simple, they're like stick figure.
Oh yeah,
cartoons?
Yeah.
That would be pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that artistic.
Cartoonist.
Yeah. But yeah, where we last left off, I mean, we read a lot, but like nothing really happened. He was on the run. He went to a bar.
So let's for people that don't know, including me, name, they don't remember the name. Just one more time.
He only named two characters the entire time. There's Grignr, the hero, who's a barbarian. And then there is this advisor named Agafund, who he murdered.
Okay.
We were introduced to Agafund, and then Agafund died. Yeah, he went to some city. He went to a bar. He tried to seduce a wench with sagging nipples. And then he got in a fight with a soldier, murdered the soldier, got pulled before like the sultan of the city, murdered some people there, and has now been sent to prison. So that's where we are in chapter 3. Grignr's in prison. All right. Chapter 3. Consciousness returned to Grignr in stigmatic pools, as his mind gradually cleared of the cobwebs cluttering its inner recesses. Yet the Stygian cloud of charcoal ebony remained. He likes that Stygian word.
I'm trying to find the line you're on.
Oh, yeah. It's at the very start of chapter 3. So if you control F chapter 3, you can probably find it. An incompatible shield of blackness enhanced by the bleak absence of sound. Grignr's muddled brain reeled from the shock of the blow he had received to the base of his skull. The events leading to his predicament were slow to filter back to him. He dickered with the notion that he was dead and had descended or sunk, however it may be, to the shadowed land beyond the aperture of the grave, but rejected this hypothesis when his infinitely more precarious... rejected this hypothesis when his memory sifted back within his grips. Like how this barbarian hypothesizes.
And then rejected it also.
This was not the land of the dead. It was something infinitely more precarious than anything the grave could offer. Death promised an infinity of peace, not the finite misery of an inactive life of confined torture. Forever concealed from the life-bearing shafts of the beloved rising sun, the orb that had been before taken for granted, yet now cherished above all else, to be forever refused further glimpses of the snow-capped summits of the land of his birth, never again to witness the thrill of plundering unexplored lands beyond the crest of a bleeding horizon, and perhaps worst of all, the denial to ever again encompass the lustful excitement of caressing the naked curves of the body of a trim yound wench.
Oh my god. Dude. I feel like he wrote his story, then went back and switched every word to like something that he thought would be like a fancier, more, you know,
Yeah,
poetic, so to speak.
yeah.
But some of it, I'm like, it doesn't even. There's no
I like how the
cohesion
thing
to
he's
it.
missing the most is sex. That's I guess he is he
How
tells story
old
by a
was he again?
16-year-old boy. This was indeed one of the buried chasms of hell, concealed within the inner depths of the palace's despised interior. A fearful ebony chamber devised to drive to the brinks of insanity.
Ebony
The
Chamber.
ebony chamber, because I think he heard the ebony is like this, like he
Black.
thought it the source for like dark or black. Didn't
Yeah.
really comprehend the connotations.
It's
of
not
it.
the same thing. Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, the drive to the brinks of insanity, the minds of the unfortunately condemned, through the inapt solitude of a limbo of listless, dreary silence. All right, are you ready for this, Muhammad?
Let's go.
Chapter 3.5.
Damn, do you think he wrote it after? He added that in after because there was no continuity to a story or something?
Maybe. I have another theory. I will spoil, there's another half chapter later. And I think the thing they have in common is that they're not entirely from Grignr's perspective. So maybe that's why it's a half
he's doing this
chapter.
like the half take from another perspective.
Yeah, it might,
That's
but it might
actually
be what you
respect-
said, that he wrote it later. He was like, oh, I need to have this make more sense or something. I don't know.
But
Because-
also, if he did it in terms of like doing like another shot, so to speak, like picture like a movie, and you're
Yeah.
seeing it from another perspective, that's actually not bad. But he's got some.
Maybe. But yeah,
Maybe you're not.
I'm not going to give him
any credit at all.
Yeah. Anyway, chapter 3.5, as we all know, all our favorite books with half chapters. And by the way, I just want to put, I also want to say ahead of time, chapter 3.5 is twice as long as chapter 3.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, that's just like a naming issue.
Yeah. Anyway, a tightly rung elliptical circle or torches cast their wavering shafts prancing morbidly over the smooth surface of a rectangular ridged altar. Expertly chiseled forms of grotesque gargoyles graced the oblique rim, protubrating the length of the grim orifice of death.
What?
I don't even know what he's trying to say there.
I'm trying to do that because like
Protuberating.
I can't. My laptop is gone, so I can't even bring the page up. So I'm trying to picture all this stuff in. I can't even read along with it. I'm picturing in my head. I'm like, what? Whatever gargoyles with.
There's an altar with gargoyles on it. And the gargoyles are staring forever ahead into nothingness and complete ignorance of the bloody rites enacted in their presence.
Wow.
Brown flaking stains decorated the golden surface of the ridge surrounding the altar, which
I can't believe you hate on this guy. This is not bad.
I also want to point out that
Gargoyles
altar is spelled A-L-T-E-R, as in like to change, not alter, T-A-R, which is obviously what he's referring to. Which banked to a small slit at the lower right-hand corner of the altar. Oh, here he spelled altar correctly with the A.
Correctly.
Amazing.
I can't believe that they actually didn't correct his spelling.
I know, right? The slit stood above a crudely pounded pail, which had several silver meshed chalices hanging at its sides. All right. Dangling at the rim of golden mallet, the handle of which was engraved with images of twisted faces and groved at its far end with slots designed for a snug hand grip. The head of the mallet was slightly larger than a clenched fist and shaped into a smooth oval mass. It's just such boring description of like
very detailed description of a mallet, but
yeah. Encircling the marble altar was a congregation of leering shaman, or shaman, I guess.
Shaman.
However you want to say it, shaman. Anyway, eerie chants of a bygone age, originating unknown aeons before the memory of man, were being uttered from the buried recesses of the acolyte's deep lings.
See, he starts really strong there.
And then ends on
good.
lings.
Yeah, like just the last like 4 words, just like take a shit on all of it. Because I was gonna use this line and tell you, be like, see, Tristan, he's good. And then he just like destroys it with the last few words. Yeah.
Orange paint was smeared in generous globules over the tops of
See?
globules
Globules.
over the tops of priests' wrinkled, shaven scalps, while golden rings projected from the lobes of their pink ears. Like what? Just say they're wearing earrings. Just say they're wearing gold earrings. Ornate robes of luscious purple satin enclosed their bulging torsos, attached around their waists with silvered silk lashes, latched with ebony buckles in the
Oh
shape
my
of
god.
crow's misshaped skulls. Dangling around their necks were oval-fashioned medallions held by thin gold chains, featuring in their centers blood-red rubies which resembled crimson fetish eyeballs. Cushioning their bare feet were blush-red felt slippers with pointed golden spikes projecting from their tips. I want to point out we've had this is half the chapter. Nothing has happened. There's been no action at all. It's just been a description. And we're still on description in paragraph 3 of 5 here.
Wow.
Situated in front of the altar and directly adjacent to the copper pail was a massive jade idol, a misshaped, hideous bust of the shaman's pagan deity, or deity, I should say. The shimmering green idol was placed in a sitting posture on an ornately carved golden throne, raised upon a round, ivory-plated dais. Its bulging arms and webbed hands resting on the padded arms of the seat. Its head was entwined in golden snake-like coils hanging over its oblong ears, which tapered off to thin hollow points. Its nose was a bulging triangular mass, sunken in at its sides with toe-gaping nostrils. Toe-gaping nostrils?
What?
Dramatic beneath the nostrils was a twisted, shaggy-lipped mouth, giving the impression of a slavering, sadistic grimace. At the foot of the heathen deity, a slender, pale-faced female, naked but for a golden, jeweled harness enshrouding her huge, outcropping breasts. Outcropping breasts.
Outcropping. I mean, I get it. I understand the imagery.
She has big boobies.
Big boobies.
Supporting long silver laces which extended to her thigh, stood before the pearl-white field with noticeable shivers traveling up and down the length of her exquisitely molded body.
Molded.
Her delicate lips trembled beneath soft, narrow hands as she attempted to conceal herself from the piercing stare of the ambivalent idol. Glaring directly down towards her was the stony, cycloptic face of the bloated deity. Gaping from its single oblong socket was scintillating many faceted scarlet emerald. A scarlet emerald? All right. A brilliant gem seeming to possess a life of its own. A priceless gleaming stone.
What is even happening anymore? I don't understand what's going on.
Nothing has happened in this chapter. There's a woman who's clearly at an altar surrounded by priests, is about to be sacrificed, and there's some sort of like statue.
But I'm not even picking up that. Like, if you hadn't told me that, I would have been lost in the void.
Yeah,
you know what
I
mean?
mean,
Like,
even I'm lost. Practically, I have it in front of me. I'm reading. It's like nothing's happening. It's so boring. Just description.
Oh my god!
But this is important. This last line is important. A priceless gleaming stone capable of domineering the wealth of conquering empires. The Eye of Argon.
Oh, here's the first mention.
It's the title of the story. That was the whole point of chapter 3.5. A whole big preamble just to say this is the Eye of Argon.
Okay, fair enough. But I mean, that was horrible. I could not have finished that. Yeah, like I'm
You're
glad
right.
that you read it to me because like I couldn't. Like I was getting single imagery. There was like no linearity to the story at all.
Yeah, it's that was
But the
rough.
Eye of Argon, so it's this emerald multifaceted thing.
It's a
That
jewel. It's a
okay.
valuable jewel as far as I could tell. That's what the Eye of Argon is. Yeah, now we'll go on to chapter 4. Thank God chapter
Three and a half
three
is
and a half
over.
is over.
You said there's another half chapter somewhere.
Yeah, there's another half chapter later, but that's a fair bit later.
How many
We're back.
chapters again?
Hmm?
How many
Well, if you
chapters?
count the half chapters, I
You
believe
gotta.
there are 9 chapters, I think.
Okay.
But if you count the half chapters as half chapters, I guess there's only 8 chapters because
Okay.
7
Well, I guess
like
yeah.
7
No, wait, it would
full
be 10?
chapters and then 2 half chapters, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway, um, all knowledge of measuring time had escaped Grignr. When a person is deprived of the sun, moon, and stars, he loses all conception of time as he had previously understood it. It seemed as if years had passed if time were being measured by terms of misery and mental anguish. Yet he estimated that his stay had only been a few days in length. So despite having no conception of time, okay, whatever, he has slept 3 times and had been fed 5 times since his awakening in the crypt. However, when the actions of the body are restricted, its needs are also affected. The need for nourishment and slumber are directly proportional to the functions the body has performed, meaning that when free and active, Grignr may become hungry every 6 hours and witness the desire for sleep every 15 hours, whereas in his present condition, he may encounter the need for food every 10 hours and the want for rest every 20 hours. All methods had before depended on were extinct in the dismal pit. Hence, he may have been imprisoned for 10 minutes or 10 years. He did not know, resulting in a disheartened emotion within his being.
Resulting in a disheartened emotion in his brain.
I like how it's just a whole bunch of math. It's like just a scientific dissertation on how time is like relative depending on like what
yeah,
you
he like broke it down, and
doing.
at the end, he's just like, it was like a disheartened feeling in his brain.
It's
Wow.
so bizarre.
Wow. That might have been my favorite part of it so
That was
far.
a pretty great paragraph.
Yeah.
Just like it almost feels like he tried to submit for science class one day or something.
I know. He just like broke down how time works in that alternate universe.
Yeah.
Only to say this guy doesn't know how long he's been there.
Yeah. The food, if you can honor the moldering lumps of fetid mush to that extent, was borne to him by 2 guards who opened a portal at the top of his enclosure and shoved it to him in wooden bowls.
Open a portal, okay.
So like instead of saying like they had like a slot that they opened and put in, he decided
Open
to thesaurus it up and say it's a portal.
I think he did that with every single word in the story.
Quite possibly.
It's possible.
I mean, the image of moldering lumps of fetid mush isn't a bad, that's actually a decent imagery, but then he just kind of ruins it.
I told you, it's like these moments of like hitting it. That's why I don't hate it as much, because this 16-year-old was onto something. You know, he has moments of brilliance.
But also when I read that, because then I read the things around it, I'm wondering if like he just stumbled onto that through sheer luck by using a thesaurus and picking out the right words, you know?
No way.
Because then he says like,
you are so mean, Tristan. were you ever a TA in university?
No.
Thank God. People would have hated you. You'd be marking people so tough. Like
it's like you clearly just don't know the meaning of the words you're using. Anyway.
You gotta mark the effort a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. No, look at you, like
no.
dismissing me. No.
I'll give him some props, but you know, he did write a long story. Clearly, like had some idea that he was excited about. Retrieving the food and water bowels from his previous meal at the same time. After which they threw back the bolts on the iron latch and returned to their other duties. Since deprived of all other means of nourishment, Grignr was impelled to eat the tainted slop, in order to ward off the pangs of starvation. Though as he
He's so
stuffed
hungry
it,
he could eat anything.
yeah. Though as he stuffed it into his mouth with his filthy fingers and struggled to force it down his throat, he imagined it was that which had been spurned by the hounds stationed at various segments of the palace. It's bad food.
Okay.
There was little in the barren vault that could occupy his body or mind. He had paced out the length and width of the enclosure time and time again, and tested every granite slab which consisted the walls of the prison, in hopes of finding a hidden passage to freedom, all of which was to no avail other than to keep him busy and distract his mind from wandering to thoughts of what he believed was his future. He had memorized the number of strides from one end to the other of the cell, and he knew the exact number of slabs which made up the bleak dungeon. Numerous schemes were introduced and alternately discarded in turn as they succored to unravel it to him no means of escape which stood the slightest chance of success. Anguish continued to mount as his means of occupation were rapidly exhausted. Suddenly, without no tiv, he was roused from his contemplations. He was rooted, I guess, because it's one word. He was rooted from his contemplations as he detected a faint scratching sound at the end of the crypt opposite him. The sound seemed to be caused by something trying to scrape away at the granite blocks the floor of the enclosure consisted of.
Okay.
Very odd phrasing. The sandy scratching of something like an animal's claws.
Okay.
Grignr gradually groped his way to the other end of the vault, carefully feeling his way along with his hands ahead of him. When a few inches from the wall, a loud penetrating squeal and the scampering of small padded feet reverberated from the walls of the roughly hewn chamber.
Okay.
Grignr threw up his hands to shield his face and flung himself backwards upon his buttocks. A fuzzy form bounded to his hairy chest, burying its talons in his flesh, while gnashing towards his throat with its grinding white teeth. Its sour, fetid breath scorching the skirming barbarians' dilating nostrils. All right, has bad breath apparently, and it's like,
Okay.
you want to barf, I guess is the impression I get. Grignr grappled with the lashing flexor muscles of the repugnant body of a gargantuan, brown-hided rat, striving to hold its razor teeth from his juicy jugular. As its beady great organs of, oh my, this is the best. Okay, this is great. As its beady gray organs of sight. So instead of saying it's beady gray eyes, beady gray organs of
sight. Okay.
Glazed instead of gazed into the flaring emeralds of its prey. So this rat thinks it could take a full-grown man. Taking hold of the rodent around its lean, growling stomach with both hands, Grignr pried it from his crimson-rent breast, removing small patches of flayed flesh from his chest in the motion between the squalid black claws of the starving beast. Holding the rodent at arm's length, he cupped his right hand over its frothing face, constricting his fingers into a vice-like fist over the quivering head. Retaining his grips on the rat, Grignr flexed his outstretched arms while slowly twisting his right hand clockwise and his left hand counterclockwise motion. So he's just like describing in like the most scientific terms how he's twisting its neck. Like he's just going like that. That's it. That whole sentence is just describing him going
elbow straight out and then turning.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The rodent let out a tortured squall, drawing scarlet as it violently dug its foam-flecked fangs into the barbarian's sweating palm, causing his face to contort to an ugly grimace as he cursed beneath his breath. With a loud crack, the rodent's head parted from its squirming torso, sending out a sprinkling shower of crimson gore, and trailing a slimy string of disjointed vertebrae, snapped trachea, esophagus and
What?
jugular, disjointed hyoid bone, morose purpled stretched hide, and
What
blood
the
seared
fuck?
muscle. I like the anatomy lesson he gives us there.
Exactly. But listen, look, when I hear shit like that, I think of what you just said. Maybe he did go through like a dictionary and just like added a bunch of words back to back just to fill it in.
Yeah.
But I have respect for that too, even.
Flinging the broken body to the floor, Grignr shook his blood-streaked hands and wiped them against his thigh until dry, then wiped the blood that had showered his face and from his eyes. Again, sitting himself upon the jagged floor, he prepared to once more revamp his glum meditations. He told himself that as long as he still breathed, the gut.
Oh, what happened?
I don't know what happened, but we're back, and it's recording automatically. So let's leave it anyway. Yeah, a little brief little problem with Zoom, but we're back. I'll just reread what I just read. So Grignr wipes the blood off of him. He flings the corpse of the rat to the floor. He is about to get lost in glum meditations again, but he tells himself that as long as he still breathed the gust of life through his lungs, hope was not lost. He told himself this, but found it hard to comprehend in his gloomy surroundings. Yet he was still alive, his bulging sinews at their peak of marvel, his struggling mind floating in a miral of impressed excellence of thoughts. Plot after plot sifted through his mind in energetic contemplations. Then it hit him. Minutes may have passed in silent thought or days. He could not tell, but he stumbled at last upon a plan that he considered as holding a slight margin of plausibility. This is a well-educated barbarian. He might die in the attempt, but he knew that he would not submit without a final bloody struggle. It was not a foolproof plan, yet it built up a store of renewed vortexed energy in his overwrought soul. Though he might perish in the execution of the escape, he would still be escaping the life of infinite torture in store for him. For him, one word. Either way, he would still cheat the gloating prince of the succored revenge his sadistic mind craves so dearly. The guards would soon come to bear him off to the prince's buried mines of dread, giving him the sought-after opportunity to execute his newly formulated plan. Groping his way along the rough floor, Grignr finally found his tool in a pool of congealed gore, the carcass of the decapitated rodent, the tool that the very filth he had been sentenced to spawned. When the time came for action, he would have to be prepared. So he set himself to rending the sticky hulk in grim silence, searching by the touch of his fingertips for the lever to freedom.
Dude, I want to know one thing about this guy. Did he ever write anything else after this?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Oh, nothing. This is his one-off.
Yeah.
What was his job after then?
I don't really know. You can look it up. I think actually the website does give like a bit of a biography of Jim Tice. I think it like kind of says. I'm not really. I think he just kind of went to go work like a desk job somewhere,
78 pages, huh?
What,
How many
this
pages it is? Yeah.
I think it's less than 70. I think it's like 20 something pages.
Really? Why did it?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, I have it on bigger pieces of paper.
Oh, it's interesting. 23 in zine, 52 and 76 in book editions. What does that even mean? Yeah, he added more?
No, it probably just means like the way they formatted it made it take up more pages in a book than in the zine, would be my guess.
The author, okay. James Francis Thies or whatever was published in the hands of blah, 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 blah. Oh, he earned a degree in journalism.
Oh, there you go. That means he
Radio
learned to write, presumably.
He also collected, traded, and sold tapes of radio programs in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. That sounds really unexciting. No appetites. Oh my God, you're right. He almost did nothing afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, this book.
Listen. I don't want to say nothing. He probably like had a full-on life.
Yeah.
But how big is this among like? Because I know obviously this is like a running joke with you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. It's
But I'm just saying, how big is it now, like in popular culture, so to speak? Would you say is it super underground?
I wouldn't say it's super underground, but it's also not super well known. I think it kind of depends like what community you're in. Like if you go to like science fiction conventions, there like you'll probably encounter a panel where people read this out loud.
Really, hey?
But if
So
you're going to like
that's
video game
decently big.
conventions or like Star Trek conventions, you probably have never heard of this, right?
But let's say like if you were in one of those like Dungeons and Dragons type thing,
Yeah.
a lot of people would have heard of this, right?
Possibly. Again, it depends.
What I'm trying to get is that like, is there more than 1 million people who know about this story or not?
Yeah, I'd say more than 1 million, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Like you will find, as I said, like I found a reference to it in a video game. Is how I came across it.
And it was like a very clear reference, or was it in passing?
There's an item you can get called the Eye of Argon. And
Okay.
And then I was looking at that item, and then it's like, oh, it's a reference to this book. Obviously, it's the exact same title.
Okay.
So
did he like have? Is this like did this come to light culturally after his death, or did he get?
No. He died in like the 2000s, and this started coming up like I think in like within a decade of it being published. I think is when people started noticing it.
That's interesting, though.
Yeah, and it just slowly started rising. But for a long time, people, because like he was a nobody, some people thought it wasn't an actual like some people thought it was a pseudonym, that maybe it was purposefully bad, like it was written by someone like an actual experienced author who like wanted to make it bad, or it was written by a group of people. Like there were all these theories about who actually wrote it, and they found no, it's written by it's legit, it's real. It was written by an actual person.
What was the fascination about? Like, it's just some shitty text. Somebody got caught up in finding out what it's about, huh?
Yeah, I think like, you just got a bit of a cult following, and I think some people saw like, it's really funny. It's like a great example of just like, like overly descriptive language, which is called purple prose, is kind of
Say that again?
Purple prose is the literary name for it.
Okay.
Which is where you just like go on and on and on describing like how things look and stuff like that.
I didn't
like,
even know that. I just
overly flowery language, horrible spelling mistakes, just weird, like every now and then he'll just have a paragraph where he just obsesses over like math and stuff like that. Yeah.
So in terms of brevity, like you being a writer, how much is that valued? Like, are you at all times trying to say less?
I mean, there are different schools of thought. Some people argue that there is a place for like descriptive flowery language in certain genres or at certain times. And then there are people who like to be as sparse as possible. They're probably in the Ernest Hemingway school. That was kind of how his famous writing style. And also like it varies with time. Sometimes people like that, like fads come and go. They rise and fall trends.
Is that so? Do you think it's like it has to do with the trends in writing sometimes?
A little bit. Like for instance, like Charles Dickens, very famous and well-regarded English language author. He was paid by the word. So if you read Dickens, you got these big, thick tomes that are incredibly descriptive. There's like all this stuff that you might consider unnecessary, but people still regard him as a great author. Like,
do you think that's why his stories translated well into like plays and movies and stuff also?
Yeah. I mean, there's this like Oliver. Wait, did he do Oliver Twist? Yeah,
I think so, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I need to look this up. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's his
he
best
did.
one, no?
Yeah, Oliver Twist became a pretty famous musical. Great Expectations has been adapted a lot. So is like A Tale of Two Cities. He's written a lot. Like,
who
Dickens
wrote Huckleberry Finn?
That was Mark Twain. That's an American.
Mark Twain,
book. Yeah.
Okay.
Who he wrote with more humor than Dickens. Dickens was very depressing.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, but what I'm saying is like they're like purple, like it's not inherently bad to be descriptive in your language. But I
Okay.
think there is kind of a point where it's like you're saying way too much, you're going overboard with it. And this definitely is an example of someone going overboard.
For sure. The reason why I ask is that because in the writing that like, we were taught, especially in like science and paper writing, it's always about like if you can reduce 3 words into one,
Yeah.
you do that. You
Yeah. I
always
mean,
reduce,
if
you give it
if you're
to
doing
like,
like technical writing, like even
yeah,
journalism,
yeah,
yeah, you want to be as clear and concise as possible. You
yeah,
can't just go on and on and on,
for
right?
sure. You don't even have their attention that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when writing creatively, you can obviously you have a lot more room to do what you want. But yeah, I mean it's a thin
What is
line,
your
I'd say.
style?
I tend to be a bit more sparse, I'd say. I don't get super descriptive.
Yeah.
Which sometimes I consider to be like a weakness in my writing. It's like, maybe the audience doesn't get a very good image of like what I see in my head when I'm writing this. But sometimes it's good.
How
Sometimes you
often
want
do you write
the
fiction?
audience to imagine what they see.
Yeah. But how often do you write fiction?
Um, like I write for pleasure for myself from time to time. I finish very few of the stories I begin. That's
Yeah.
my big problem. I'll like write a bit and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll come back.
Percentage wise, what's like the closest you've gotten to done?
I once wrote a short story that I think was like that I finished completely, but it was only
Yeah,
like like a dozen pages or something. It was a pretty short story.
that's not bad.
Yeah.
Do you have anything big? 100 pager,
Uh,
rager?
anything big? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I have idea for like longer form stories that I just like write like one chapter or two chapters and then forget.
You don't never finish it?
Yeah.
That's a travesty, man. You should do that.
Yeah.
Do you have a writing routine by any chance? You know how those
Um,
writers have like they wake up and they do this and that and that. And it
I
goes
don't have
down.
a set routine. Normally, when I
Yeah.
start to write, it's later at night when I should be sleeping, and then I
Okay.
get an idea in my
A
head,
lot of people do that.
writing it. Yeah.
There's something about the creative process at night when you're alone and like everything's shut down.
Yeah.
It's not the best time for learning, but it might be the best time for, expressing.
Yeah. That's also when I wrote most of my essays in college. That was for a different reason. That was because I procrastinated a lot.
Oh, I know. I know. Don't tell me about it. But I gave up by the time like my third or fourth year, it was very clear to me that that's not how it's gonna work. You know what I mean? You learn that like those last minute, essays and stuff, they always fuck up your marks and like I don't know about you, you might have been good at it, but like
Yeah, I normally could scrape by, although I feel like the one problem with that is I often like my proofreading of the essay wasn't super great, and then I'd read it later and be like, oh fuck, there's this obvious mistake that I missed, and now my professor read it.
oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, props to you. Writing was never really I mean, I know how to write, I know how to like do like business writing and shit like that, but like nothing descriptive.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
at least I feel like as much as you don't want to give this guy any credit, I feel like we should take the time and one more time, you know, respect the guy for what he's done at the age 16.
Yeah.
As uber descriptive as it is, like there are some good stuff in there.
Yeah. I think next time we'll get through chapter 5 is short. Chapter 6 goes on for a bit. Do you want to finish chapter 5 today or save it for next time?
We could do it next. Yeah, let's do it next time.
All right,
Yeah.
sure. Maybe we'll
Hey,
do chapter
how do I
5
send
next
you the
time, like
last
after
one?
chapter 6.
How do I chapter 5 after chapter 6?
No, I'm saying chapter 5 is short, but chapter 6 is long. So we'll probably do all of chapter 5 and then maybe
6.
half of chapter 6 next time.
How long is 6? Maybe we can do it together.
Do it what?
Maybe we can do 5 and 6 together. Is it that long?
Yeah, I think we can do them together. We can possibly do them together, but chapter 6 is definitely the longest chapter.
Okay.
For whatever reason, chapter 6 is the chapter where all this stuff happens. And the last chapter is also decently long, but not as long as chapter 6. Anyway, that's fine.
Do you ever see anything in that telescope? I gotta ask you. Like,
I mean, yeah,
do you ever like?
yeah. When there was an eclipse like a year or two ago that we looked at.
What's like the coolest shit you've seen?
I mean, I'm not. That's more my dad's hobby than mine, but it's.
But he must have shown you some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was. This is the way I say. The reason I say it's because like I looked around, like, yeah, okay, cool. I guess it doesn't inspire me at all, like it does for some other people. I guess and he hasn't shown me much. Like you can see the eclipse was probably the coolest thing. Otherwise, what you can see through is like the surface of the moon. You can kind of see like Mars and Venus and stuff.
You can see Mars and Venus.
Yeah.
Their surface, or
no, you just kind of see like a dot closer up. Is really all you see. Yeah.
Okay.
The moon is the only thing where it's close enough you can actually really make out any sort of detail.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Oh
well. Yeah. So I guess we'll
I need to send you the other file, but I don't know how to find
you do.
it.
You can't
How do I
find it.
that?
Search for it.
Where do I search for it?
I don't know, on your computer. It's saved there somewhere.
Oh, just like
search your computer for Zoom or something.
I thought like you know how to get to it. You tell me.
Oh, I don't know how to get through it on your computer. Like you just need to. I don't know where things save to your computer.
Oh, never mind. I'll find it.
Anyway, that's it for today. Maybe we'll keep this awkward bit in the video where we're discussing technical stuff. But,
whatever, it's good enough, man. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see you next time where we'll pick up where we left off with chapter 5. Hopefully get through chapter 6. We'll probably take 2 more parts at least to finish this story, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. Anyway,
nice
we'll see you next time. Yeah.
Perfect. Take care.
I will end the recording.
Bye.
Oh.